Hey guys, this is Courtney from Will's Bloom, and today I am excited to talk to you about the full moon we have on June 14th, happening at 23 degrees of Sagittarius, which we can see here on the screen. So you can see the moon is at 23 degrees, the sun is opposite it at 23 degrees in Gemini. The moon, I don't think I said, is in 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So this is definitely a time in which truth and beliefs are really becoming very important. However, it's also a time in which these elements can become unclear. And I think the story I'm about to tell you will unfold and become clear, I believe, in the later half of June. And I'll get to that in a second. So let's go ahead and start off with the fact that the sun is in Gemini, which is generally a time of connection and understanding of others and conversation. And there is definitely a lot of conversations happening right now. I personally have had a number of conversations, mostly reconciling or trying to understand other people. And some of those conversations have been challenging. And so for some of you guys, you might encounter this yourself, that you are having a number of ideas, thoughts, or conversations that are somewhat challenging and maybe giving us some erratic results. As I mentioned, the moon in Sag is meant to be here to help us create revelations through those conversations. However, because this moon is in a very tight square, 2-degree square with Neptune, I do think that those revelations will be delayed because Neptune tends to put our own spin on things. Neptune tends to create a false reality in which we believe something maybe ardently, but only to realize that we had a half truth rather than the full truth. And I think many of us will see that in these conversations or ideas, that the thing that's presented to us is either not the full truth or has been distorted by our consciousness. And so we will have to come to terms with certain realities about ourselves and about the other person, if we're dealing with another person, or about a certain situation, if we're dealing with an idea. Those realizations or those facing of the realities, I think, will be very transformative in this process, but maybe a little bit difficult to face since we're kind of being set up here for a little bit of deception. And so this can mean that we could lie to ourselves, we could be lied to by others, we could, again, just have some kind of truth that isn't the full truth. We can see something and know something in our deepest core, but it's actually not the full picture, and so it is distorted in some way. And this is why whenever I see a square with Neptune and Venus, I will often see people struggle in their initial relationships in life, in their early relationships, because they will see the partner in an idealistic way, or they will see who they want to see. And so for some of us, there may be some element here of seeing what we want to see, whether that's good or whether that's bad. We'll kind of see later how this unfolds. This moon is also making a sextile to Saturn, which creates a little bit of harshness or sternness to this process. The good news is that Saturn is a sobering planet, and so with it comes some type of opportunity for growth and lessons. And so even though it might delay our ability to have the full picture, ultimately when we do catch up and when we are granted the vision of the entirety of the situation or the person or the conversation or the idea or whatever it is, at that point, I think Saturn will really kick in, and the benefits of the efforts we have undergone up until that point will become like abundantly clear. So I think the moon making a sextile to Saturn is giving us an opportunity to work within this distorted paradigm and do our best to create something positive for ourselves as a result of whatever we're experiencing. And then again, as I mentioned, I do think that at some point we will gain clarity. And when we do gain full clarity, it's almost like these new things that we've learned about ourselves, or these new things that we've implemented, or the things that we've worked hard to create in our life in that paradigm will then shift over to the entire paradigm, and they will become stronger, healthier, and more like absorbent. And I don't know why I said the word absorbent, but it just came to mind, so I said it. Maybe it's absorbing in, like, I guess, into our new reality, and sticking and staying. And I think for many of us, the sextile with Saturn is an indication of things that we have really tried to do for ourselves in the past that hasn't been successful. So it's almost like we had to have a fragmentation of our current reality to and create these beliefs and all this stuff. It's like everything had to get a little bit distorted in order for us to make changes on things that we've been meaning to make changes on. And then it's like our reality will set back into the normal phase that it's normally in, but those changes will already be there, and they'll be rooted, and they'll be strong. And so they can last the test of time. But it's almost like for some reason we kept trying to make these changes and it wasn't working. So our reality had to like shift. So that's a weird way to put this. It's probably one of the weirdest readings I've ever done, but that's how I'm seeing this. Is there some kind of almost like alternate universe that we're stepping into for this period of time to instigate changes that are long overdue. And then we come back to our reality, our dimension, with all of the tools, with all the experiences, and we feel stronger and better and more knowledgeable of ourselves after that journey. And we're actually able to like stick with those changes. So I hope that is making sense, and I hope that is relating to you guys as well. Saturn also has gone retrograde. And so one of the experiences with this is kind of reevaluating our commitments and changing often our approach, changing our approach to things in order to actually land in a very strong foundational place. And I asked Spirit, like, what cards would represent this? And I got the Six of Swords, and that's the Six of Swords, right? Yeah. And the Ten of Pentacles. Ten of Pentacles is, to me, one of the most Saturnian cards, obviously besides the Devil, which is representative of Saturn and Capricorn. But Ten of Pentacles to me is like the ultimate establishment of ourselves in this world. It's the physical reality that we create, which Saturn is trying to get us to do in some ways. So it's us making commitments, building a family, having money, being successful, like all very Saturn things. So it's in order for us to achieve that, essentially, we have to go on this internal journey with the Six of Swords. We have to make different choices. We have to leave behind the paradigm that we're currently in. We can't just stay in this spot. We can't just stay in our comfort zone. We can't just approach things the way that we've always done it. And so I think that this glazing over of our vision, this alternate reality, this break of perception, is doing us the favor of transporting us into a new way of looking at things, which ultimately will give us what we need as ingredients to create that Ten of Pentacles, that strong, future, successful version of ourselves. And I think that this whole time can bring out quite a bit of unexpected results, maybe some malfunction as well in terms of relationships, self-worth, and money, because we have Uranus and the North Node on Venus. So Venus is a planet of love and money and self-worth, what we value. So we're really examining our values and maybe having changes to our values as well. And in turn, our internal self-worth may shift, our relationships may shift, and our financial situation may also shift in a way that might feel sudden or unexpected or unprecedented in our lives. Unfortunately, Saturn is also squaring Venus, so some of these changes can actually bring about feelings of lack or of loneliness. And the sensation that I get with Saturn squaring Venus is this feeling of having to make do or do things on your own. It's not like having all of the options that you normally have or all the support that you normally have. There's a feeling that things are more turbulent. These unexpected changes are actually leaving you with less than you normally have in terms of like money, support, value, all those things. So these kind of hardships or this drying out in that area of our life is helping us really turn to our inner resources, because Jupiter has moved into Aries, which is an extremely independent sign. It wants us to be very self-driven and focused, and it wants us to almost detach from the pleasures or the ease that Venus can bring into our life, the comfort zone that Venus likes to stay in. And it wants to push us out there in order to make decisions that are in our own best interests, to take leaps of faith, to be brave, to be courageous. And you're not going to do that when you have this really cozy bed and you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes it's nice to have something that puts pressure on you to move forward. And so that is what this square with Saturn and Venus is establishing for us, is a level of discomfort. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick, which is crazy because I've been sick like 6 times this year already. A little bit of discomfort so that we can really understand what we're made of, what we really value, what we really want, and how to make it happen on our own. So there's a strong degree of self-sufficiency. I also wrote in my notes, lack is showing us what we need to develop within ourselves, because this Sagittarius new moon is all about our beliefs, our values, our morals, our integrity, as well as Venus on the North Node. And so maybe we are out of integrity in some way in our life. And by removing this support system, by altering this paradigm, that somehow creates a recipe for us to actually tap into those things and question those things and align ourselves with the integrity that we are looking for, or the future self that we are looking for, which may have a different way of being. So what is right for each of us individually right now? That's a question Jupiter in Aries is going to be asking throughout this year. How can our soul grow even more in a less hospitable environment? So, I mean, normally when we think about this, we think of plants and we're like, okay, we have to have the perfect soil for them. We have to have the perfect sun and water. But even then, even when they've got everything handed to them, they can still get infestations of aphids on them, and they can still be eaten by bunnies and rabbits and squirrels. And creating the perfect environment does not necessarily equate to success. And there are many weeds and other strong plants that can grow in harsh environments. And I think that part of what Saturn squaring Venus does is it creates a little bit of harshness in order for us to become a little bit more like a weed, where we can grow and we can thrive anywhere. And we don't have to have the perfect conditions to be successful. So I also wrote like self-reliance and scrappiness, because I think this could be very financial for a number of you. And so there's a sense of scrappiness. How can I make do on my own? How can I be creative and inventive and create success amongst this current state of lack? And then that goes as well for relationships. What is this rift or this difficulty in relationships or this changeability in relationships teaching me about myself in ways I'm out of integrity with myself and ways I can better myself for the future? So all these things are really oriented towards the long term. And that's why I think the current version of this moon is like, our whole paradigm is like confused. Because it's not really about the short term. It's about what we are changing now to better ourselves for later this month and especially the following months after that. Also, during this full moon, we have Chiron in an exact conjunction with Mars in Aries. Mars is very strong here in its home sign, but it is feeling sensitive, I should say, with the asteroid Chiron next to it. Chiron, as many of you know, is the wounded healer. And so there is some element here of having to face our own sensitivities and woundings. And it's specifically around Aries topics. So things related to Mars, things related to our independence, our willpower, our sense of self, our autonomy. And even it can come down to like physical things like our strength or even our sexual nature. We may discover that we have some buried insecurities here that are coming up around this full moon that may make us feel, again, very sensitive. And so some things that come up during this full moon could challenge those aspects of you or could enlighten about where those things are weak for you so that you can heal them and, essentially be liberated from anything that is keeping you from feeling in your power, in your leadership, in your sense of self and strong in who you are. And so if you find things that are challenging you at this time, even if it's not real, because again, this is squaring Neptune, so there is some, again, fragmentation of reality. Whatever this is, even if it's fleeting or you're not seeing it clearly or it's not real in some way, it is having a real result for you. It is bringing something up that feels really real and having healing come forth from that or changes come forth from that ultimately. And again, I feel like we won't really have the full clarity around the situation until, I think, Neptune reaches a different place in the sky. Or sorry, the moon reaches a different place in the sky where it's no longer in a square with Neptune. And I think that should happen around like the 23rd, maybe a little bit on the 22nd. And that time is actually when the moon will reach this point in the sky with Aries and Mars and Aries and Chiron and Aries. So the moon will be there and it will no longer be squaring Neptune. Saturn will no longer be squaring Venus. So it's going to be less tension around money relationships. It's going to be, we're going to be able to see things clearly. We're going to have the sense of healing come over us with the moon on these points. Even if it's uncomfortable, there will be healing. And the moon will also square Pluto at that time. And this is going to bring about everything deep, buried, and unseen. And so all this stuff that we have been blinded from the last, however many days, like 10 days, I should say, a little bit less. On the 23rd, I think it will become clear. The clouds will pass. The earthworms will come up from underneath the surface and we will see what was digging under there for so long. And I think that is when we can have the full manifestation of the benefits and the blessings of what this experience is trying to give us. So that is what I'm seeing for the overall with this moon. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into what this looks like for each of the rising signs. So go ahead and stay tuned for that. All right. So up first, we have Aries Rising. And for you, this full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 9th house. And I just pulled the cards, the 4 of Cups and the 10 of Cups for you. So what's interesting, though, is that your planetary ruler is going to be conjunct Chiron, which typically brings about feelings of vulnerability, especially around your future or your path, because Mars is the ruler of your ascendant, which typically shows the way in which you move through life and how you make decisions for your future. So having Chiron here can show maybe some vulnerability or uncertainty about the path forward. Or alternatively, there can actually be significant amount of healing happening around that. So maybe where you once were uncertain, you are now becoming more certain. Ultimately, I feel like there are things with the 4 of Cups that this actually came out in reverse. So I'm going to take it like that. I feel like there are things that you are maybe in resistance to, or that you have had to let go of, or that you have had to essentially like not accept in your life or act in your life. Maybe that should be upright because of that. But there are things that you are not wanting that the universe has been trying to give you. And because of that, it is then leading you actually to what is lasting happiness. So I feel like, again, with Mars being the planet that helps you make these decisions about your future and what's right for you and what should be involved in that future, and this being a full moon in your 9th house, which has complete vision of the future, I feel like that element is really drawing my attention to the fact that you have looked at things in your life and realized this doesn't belong in my future. This is part of my past. And in that sense, there might be some healing that has to be undergone in order to, I guess, integrate all the lessons that you have learned from that past experience or person or situation or whatever, and then move on from it and nurture yourself into this next phase of your life. And this next phase of your life looks like it can be an extremely happy and fortuitous one with the 10 of Cups here. And it might involve some tenderness. It might involve some need to be, again, nurtured by the world, by your home, especially by family. Like this feeling of being vulnerable with the ones that you love and they support you and they encourage you. That is the feeling that I'm getting here. Because there's something about your life that you are no longer accepting something in it to bring you greater happiness in the end. And it is working, but there is like a letting go process that you are going through right now with this nurture card. And with this moon squaring Neptune, I'm curious about that. Let me pull an animal spirit card for that specific message. What's going on with this square with Neptune? The owl. I think that this square with Neptune, while difficult for many, is beneficial for you. Because the owl card is one in which we are in touch with things that are behind the veil. So you are being driven by an impulse or an intuition that is coming from the spirit realm rather than from the conscious mind. What that tells me is that you might not have full awareness of why you are making all the decisions that you're making. Or even if you do have awareness, there may be some parts of it still that you don't really see like the full benefits of these decisions yet until time plays itself out and your soul evolves and you realize, oh, that is why. That's what I'm getting out of this. And so I feel like this square to Neptune is basically, especially because Neptune is in your 12th house, it's giving you the support of your spirit guides, your intuition. It's like the unknown forces of the universe are kind of working in your favor and helping guide you. But again, this is often going to be paired with a lack of clarity. The owl is a bird that can see through the night using its night vision, aka your intuition. But it is still nighttime. There are still a lot of things that are obscured, a lot of things that are not brought to the surface yet. And so there may be things that you have to heal over time and become aware of over time with this square with Neptune. You guys also have Venus and Uranus in your second house, along with the North Node, all conjunct in Taurus. So definitely a big time in terms of self-worth and finances. And they are squaring Saturn in the 11th house, which the square with Saturn is not that great to me. For everyone, we can experience some sort of lack. For you, it could feel financial, but Saturn is in your 11th house of friendships. So you might even also feel like some of these changes or lack could be in the area of community as well. But ultimately, because Venus is with Uranus, there's a liberation from this. So it's like, okay, we may experience lack or change, but ultimately we are being liberated from some old circumstance around our money, around our friends, around our relationships that wasn't really moving us forward anyway. All right, no card seems to want to come out for that one. Okay, is there anything else I want to say? I feel like that was kind of short. No, I feel like that's all. So I hope that this resonates for you, Aries Rising. I hope that this does help. You are being nurtured right now, so go ahead and enjoy this support. Thanks, guys. All right, up next we have Taurus Rising. So for you guys, this full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 8th house of insecurities. And I can definitely see that with this Devil card here, which is speaking greatly about the ways in which our insecurities can affect us and affect also our level of consistency and internal stability, which we see with the Knight of Pentacles. As a Taurus ruled chart, there is some level of consistency and stability to your personality already. However, Venus, the ruler of your ascendant, is actually conjunct Uranus in the North Node and squaring Saturn. So you may actually feel that you are doubting yourself a lot more than usual. Venus squaring Saturn, your chart ruler squaring Saturn, which is what I've had for most of May, can bring about a lot of feelings of insecurities, a lot of feeling that you are not worthy enough, that there are flaws or things that you have to get better at or work through. And it can bring about realness and show us things that we can truly work on, but it can often do it with a stern or heavy hand. And with Uranus on Venus, however, I think that ultimately this pressure that's being put on you is trying to help you make certain changes that will lead you to breakthroughs. Because I feel like while you may want to be consistent and work hard with this Knight of Pentacles and keep at things as the way they are, it's almost like you have to face certain internal demons to up level with this Empress and the Six of Wands. It's like this square with Saturn, this full moon happening in 8th house. It's illuminating all the reasons why you think you can't have what you want, or why you're not good enough to have what you want. And then this Empress and the Six of Wands is coming in here to say, you absolutely can have what you want. And not only that, you can be successful, you can be finally witnessed, especially because the North Node is in your sign. Your chart ruler is on the North Node. It's saying that this is your time to shine. This is your year. This is your time to be seen. This is your time to embody your energy at its finest, and for others to really take notice of the value of Taurus energy. And again, conjunct Uranus as well, Venus is bringing about an ability to suddenly have a breakthrough, an ability to suddenly make a quantum leap into the next realm because of your facing of certain insecurities from the past or from the current reality. So I feel like this full moon is trying to liberate you from all of the insecurities that are holding you back, that honestly are really not based in reality. Actually, when I do see a moon in the 8th house, it does make me think about specifically our past that has drawn those conclusions within us. Having certain difficulties in our childhood, having certain traumatic experiences, leading us to certain conclusions about ourselves and our capability. And I just pulled the compassion card. So I think that there is a great sense of healing happening here, where you are being asked to have much more compassion with yourself and not be so hard on yourself, which is what Saturn squaring your chart ruler can do. You might blame yourself. You might think of yourself poorly. You might be just too hard on yourself when you can actually look into the past and see why you are the way that you are right now, or why you have these thoughts, or why you behave certain ways. And it's because you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to get needs met. You can start to realize that everything that you're doing is in your best interest for self-preservation. And it's a lot easier to have that compassion with yourself when you take a look at your life from that specific mindset. You also, like everyone else, have Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries, but for you that falls in your 12th house. So I want to pull an animal spirit card before I jump into what that could look like. Let me just pull one from the deck. I got the whale. That makes a lot of sense. Being in the 12th house, this is... Okay. The 12th house is the house of what's hidden, I'm sure, as you've heard me say many times. So whenever there is an activation here, there's a lot of unconscious behaviors driving us. There's a lot of depth that we don't have full access to that is attributing to our actions, our circumstances, our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings. The whale in particular, is an animal who, I believe it's the blue whale, if I'm not mistaken, who we've never seen give birth. And that's because they dive into so deep of water that that's inaccessible to us. We can't go that deep. And so there is something birthing within you. There's something healing as well that is going to come about in a much more fiery, independent, confident, courageous, and brave way. These elements are being birthed within you, but it's being done really beneath the surface. Like, you are facing certain things, but that feeling of empowerment, I feel like it's almost going to come out of nowhere, and you're not even going to know fully how it happened. But you're going through this deep metamorphosis internally, subconsciously, and reprogramming things of that nature in order to have these breakthroughs that are accessible to you right now. So that is what I'm seeing for you. I think the whale is deeply spiritual and intuitive in nature as well. Very much a divine being. And so I think you can call on the whale spirit right now to be your guide through these times. If this resonates, please let me know, Taurus, by liking and commenting down below. And if you want more like this, then you can always get a reading from me that's personalized on willowsboom.com. And you can always learn astrology with me on there as well, or in the link in the description box below. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. All right, and up next we have my beautiful Gemini risings. So this full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 7th and 1st house axis. So the moon in Sagittarius is in your 7th house. And it is squaring Neptune, which I'm now realizing I think I forgot to mention for Taurus. But it's squaring Neptune in your 10th house. So this is very interesting to me. I think that many of you... I'm also a Gemini, not a rising, but a sun. And it has been a very hard month and a half for me recently. And I feel like relationships in particular have been a source of stress, which they typically are not for me. And so what's interesting about this is the full moon is happening in your 7th house of relationships. And so you might find also that there are certain things that bubble up to the surface in relationship dynamics that have some uncertainty to them with the square with Neptune. There may be elements in which you are confused or there are misunderstandings, which I am personally going through. And through these cards here, I really see that there is going to be a transformation over time. And again, when you go back to my original video or the overview, I do talk about how I think that this will come through around the 23rd of the month. So right now you might not experience it, but in the unfolding of the next few weeks, when this energy of the moon dissipates and goes into the new moon, you will start to see the fruits of this and start to understand more of the situation. The King of Swords is a card that really stands out to me because the King of Swords is a very objective reality, especially paired with the sun, which brings this element of illumination, seeing things clearly. And so I feel like many of you may go into this situation within relationships and not see things clearly, or it could be something related to work since Neptune is in your 10th house. But most of you, I think it'll be relationships or maybe even work relationships. But I feel like there's almost some expectation because Neptune is in the 10th house of kind of like expectations and obligations and things of that nature. There might be some expectations of the relationship that you're not understanding. And so the King of Swords and the Sun card to me bring about absolute clarity. So while this full moon does not have clarity inherently within it, I believe the days following, as I mentioned, will bring this clarity, and it will accumulate or result in very objective conversations and words and thoughts and beliefs. It's like fully seeing things as they are with this King of Swords. And the Judgment card as well is an awakening. And what happens in an awakening? You are moving from a state of unconsciousness to greater consciousness. And so I think ultimately this transformative experience is bringing you from the dark to the light. It's creating misunderstandings to greater awakenings. And those awakenings can be in that relationship, in that conversation, in that idea, or it can be in many different areas of your life. It can have a seed that sprouts and grows like a weed into many different facets of your life. And I feel that this awakening turns a new leaf for you emotionally. Again, it could be with that person or within yourself, where you are really feeling revived and new in your perspective on things, because you are now seeing things in a different way or in a clearer way, and you are awakening to something that hasn't been alive within you yet, that hasn't been seen within you yet. And it's almost reviving you and reviving your spirit. You guys also have Venus in the 12th house, conjunct Uranus, squaring Saturn. So again, elements around relationships and money can be very uncertain for you right now. Until Venus emerges in your first house, it's going to feel like things are happening underneath the surface and you kind of don't have the full awareness as to why or even to what is going on. But changes are happening with that conjunction with Uranus. And the square with Saturn, the changes might feel uncomfortable. They might feel like losses. They might feel like they're bringing up triggers or wounds, insecurities. Whatever this is, although, again, the clarity will emerge as Venus moves into Gemini. So whatever is happening here in relationships and money is ultimately going to birth a new emotional experience for you with this Ace of Cups and give you sort of a new beginning. You also have Mars conjunct Chiron in the 11th house. So there is healing happening in relation to your friends. But before the healing can happen, there has to be some wounding. So, or some triggering of the wound, I should say. It's like, oh, I didn't know I had this issue. And that gets brought, or maybe you knew, but it's like it's kind of been on the back burner, and then it gets brought up again and addressed and healed and released. Let me pull an animal spirit card for that specifically. The elk. I think this elk card, let's see what it says. Cannot remember what the elk means. I think it's about confidence, if I'm not mistaken. The elk card, which is your advice through this healing around relationships and friendships. And it says, stable, resilient, and headstrong. The great elk represents the earth element in its masculine form. This means it provides underlying support and stability amidst life's many changes. An elk personality, whether male or female, is fully established in themselves and knows their core values. They become known and respected for acting in ways that uphold those values. Sometimes the elk's ego can become inflated, but for the most part, they make damn good fathers, mothers, lovers, and friends. Okay, so the goal is to become supportive, kind, and consistent in your relationships, to become stable, and to know your values within relationships and within yourself and live according to those values. So that is the healing that is happening either because of the relationships or for them or both. And I also pulled the listen to your body card, which to me is just an indicator of what I think will help show you which way to go. Which way are my values telling me to go? What feels right in my body? What feels wrong? What do I want to eat today? Do I need sleep? Do I need this or that? It's like being fully present and in tune with the body is going to be the biggest compass for you in terms of what to move towards and what to move away from. And that is what the elk is also asking you to create more of in your life. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Gemini Rising. I hope that resonates. And if it does, please let me know by liking and commenting down below. If you want a personalized reading, I always offer those in the description box below or willowsboom.com. And I also teach astrology if you want to learn this for yourself, which you can also find on both of those places. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right. Up next, we have Cancer Rising. So I just pulled your cards and wow, this is a very internal month for you. Especially this specific full moon, because this is a full moon taking place in your 6th house in Sagittarius, which means that the sun is in your 12th house. So the 6th house tends to be very intellectual, and I see people with anxiety tend to have a strong 6th house, people who tend to think a lot, or people who want to suppress the fact that they have a lot going on in their mind. And then the sun in the 12th is very similar. Like I can also see people here with sometimes like mental health things or yeah. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say with this is that specifically you guys are definitely experiencing many changes in your belief systems, because not only is this a full moon in Sagittarius, which already is related to our beliefs specifically, but it's also making a square to Neptune in the 9th house, which is the planet concerned with beliefs. Or sorry, the house concerned with beliefs. Sorry, my head just trailed off somewhere and I kept talking anyway. Does that ever happen to you guys? You're just talking, but your brain went somewhere else. So yeah, this is essentially what I'm seeing for you guys is a major overturn in beliefs, and you having to really go within this month to understand yourself, and you will definitely emerge with a greater understanding of yourself. We start off with the Devil card, which to me is an indication of feeling like you are trapped in some situation or like you can't get ahead. And often it's because you feel that there is something that you can't improve upon, or there is a thought about yourself that doesn't go away. So this could mean that you can get stuck in phases of addiction, old patterns of staying up too late, wasting time on things you don't intend to, dating the wrong people, eating the wrong foods. And this can also mean that you have certain thoughts and beliefs about yourself that are maybe even super ingrained or even unconscious that are ruling this behavior. Like, oh, okay, I'm never going to find love because XYZ, but maybe it's not even something that you've ever thought. Maybe it's something that's deeply ingrained, that love is hard to get and I have to really work hard for it. And because of that, I go on dating apps and I accept less than I deserve. It's like you see the external, but there is a lot of stuff underlying those decisions to begin with that this full moon may bring to the surface. And with the Hermit and the Hanged Man, I see you desiring to make a change. You're desiring to look at yourself with this Hermit and Hanged Man as somebody who, you're desiring to look at yourself with more clarity and with more honesty. You're bringing this light into the situation. And you are willing with the Hanged Man. I feel like you are very much willing to change your perspective. Although this full moon is squaring Neptune in the 9th house. So many of these, like much of this awareness might not come fully right now. Or it might be distorted as it does come to you. Or there might be weird, confusing situations or beliefs or things that are presented to you first that then have to kind of be worked out later and made sense of later. So this square with Neptune is slowing things down a little bit. But ultimately, it's going to give you the intuitive awareness as to what beliefs are no longer working in your favor. I also pulled the Ruminate card, which is very clear to me that you guys are thinking a lot. Some of you guys might feel a sense of anxiety. Whenever I see ruminate, I think overthinking, overstimulation of the mind. That might not necessarily be the case for all of you, but that is possible. Just a lot to work through, a lot that you're sitting and mulling over. And that's really a great time to have time alone to process things. You guys also have Venus conjunct Uranus and North Node in your 11th house of friends, squaring Saturn in the 8th house. So there is part of you that is having some change ups in maybe your friend situation, your community, or where you're spending most of your time. But with that square with Saturn in the 8th house, it could feel like it's a little bit harder to connect with others, or there are insecurities or things that come up around relationships that bring about like fears within you, uncertainties within you, and that's partially the Devil card. Why am I accepting less than I'm worth? Because maybe I have a fear of being alone, or maybe I have a fear of this from my childhood, and we're unconsciously recreating these patterns. There's just something going on here with this Saturn where this is trying to help almost like recreate a scenario so that you can finally break out of it. Like, we're going to recreate this scenario that you've had for many, many years in all your relationships so that now you can finally do something different. That's a possible way to interpret this. And it doesn't just have to be relationships, but since Venus is in the 11th house, it definitely has something to do with your sense of belonging. And so there might be things that you have actually done to yourself to make you feel like you don't belong. And this moon can bring awareness to that, to bring healing to that, changes to that over time. We also have Mars conjunct Chiron in the 10th house, which can bring up woundings and triggers around our obligations, our duties, our responsibilities, our career, our future path, knowing what we want, where we're going, our goals, our objectives. And I feel like maybe what you want is different than what you currently have because of the zebra card. I feel that many of you, maybe there are a lot of you who are watching this who feel like you are in your career, you're all good, but there feels like there's something unexpressed in your career with this wounding here. Like something very innate about your identity, something very beautiful about who you are that maybe you have to do on the side, behind the curtains, or you don't necessarily have an outlet for it at this time. And it's like your current job or your current opportunity doesn't fully allow you to express the fullest, most authentic version of yourself with the zebra card. Like you have your own essence, and this essence wants to come through, but it feels bottled up, and there can be a healing around this at this time. A trigger of it and then a healing of it. And this camel card to me is saying it might take a little bit of time before you can fully embody your essence in this career of yours or in this goal of yours. Because the camel has like stores water in its back, I think. I think it has a hump. Anyway, it can go through the desert and it doesn't necessarily need water every moment. It can survive this harsh environment. And so I think that what this is saying is you have the resources to get through times in which you are not in the best possible scenario for your essence and for yourself. You still have what it takes to ride it out and do what you need to do to get to your destination, to get to that point where you can be the zebra and can be your fullest, most authentic self. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Cancer Rising. If that resonates, please let me know by liking, commenting down below. If you would like a personal reading from me, you can always book one on willowsboom.com. And I also dropped the link in the description box below. And if you want to learn astrology and do it for yourself, I also have links for that. And that's in the description box or at willowsboom.com. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Leo risings. So for you guys, this full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 5th house. That means the sun is in Gemini in your 11th house of friendships and community. And it is squaring Neptune in Pisces in your 8th. So pulled some pretty intense cards for you guys. Multiple indications of big transformations in your life. And whenever I see a full moon in the 5th house, usually I think it's all fun, it's play, it's pleasure, it's joy. But with this square with Neptune in the 8th, I actually feel like your life is trying to become more luscious and more joyful. But in the process, you have to face some of your deepest fears, face some insecurities, and really encounter kind of what you are made of. And with Neptune, there can be some inherent uncertainty around the situation. Like what's going on, or why did that happen, or where is this coming from, or this is really deep and I feel that this has a lot of meaning for me, but I can't fully connect with all of the ways in which this is impacting me or where this is even coming from. So again, with this Ace of Wands, I feel like with this full moon in the 5th house, there's a light, a fire within you that's burning, that wants to burn brighter. It's like just now starting. It's just lighting the match. And it's supposed to be exciting and invigorating and purposeful and pleasurable and feel like it's on your path. But in order to have this, you have to go through a Tower moment. You have to have the rug pulled out from under you in some capacity. There has to be a change. Again, a facing of these fears. But with the Seven of Cups, it's like you still don't really understand everything. This is the Tower with the Seven of Cups is representative of Neptune in your 8th house in this chart. It's like, okay, this rug is being pulled out. This thing is falling away. I know it's in my best interest, but I still don't really fully understand why or what's going on or what's going to replace it or why, like the why, you know, it's like truly the picture is not fully clear for you. You're just following your intuition and inspiration and your gut, but the logic and everything that will only come with time. So ultimately, what this is going to bring you is a greater sense of stability with this Knight of Pentacles at the end here. And it's going to help you find some kind of consistency in your life. It's like something has to be taken away, and then you're able to create almost like a new routine, a new way of living your life every day. And you become consistent with that new thing. I'm just thinking of a flow, like this steady pulse. And you get into the energy of that flow. But you have to first become quite destabilized. And with Venus conjunct Uranus in the North Node in your 10th house, I think this flow is really going to come in through your career. You're really going to get some kind of establishment in what you want to do for your goals or your objectives or the future. And you're going to have some kind of plan. Even though you might not be totally certain of why all this stuff fell through and things are changing and you're uncertain about things and things are kind of chaotic, it's like you're able to grasp onto some level of consistency within your career because of these changes. It's like you're able to create a routine or have more consistent work or something, even though there is Uranus there with Venus, which does indicate change or instability. But with the Knight of Pentacles, I feel like it's through the change and instability that you create more stability. I hope that makes sense. So it's like something is like tumultuous and then the dust settles and it's like, oh, okay, now I know where I'm going. And with Venus squaring Saturn, though, in your 7th house, there may be some of this lack of support, or you may feel that relationships are not really where they need to be for you right now. Relationships can be a source of pain, discomfort, insecurity, and they can somehow conflict with your career or your life goals and objectives. And that could be part of what this Tower moment is. Maybe some of you are having to face certain aspects of relationships that aren't working. And it has to fall away and you're kind of confused as to what's even happening and why it's going on. But ultimately, it's going to give you some more stability and consistency in your life by having whatever this is fall away, whether it's a specific person, whether it's a dynamic within a relationship, whether it's conversation that you need to have in a relationship. Like, only you will truly know, but it does likely involve someone else because of Saturn in the 7th house. I also pulled the Butterfly and the Transform card, and I think you guys can clearly see that there is a metamorphosis happening this month. And with Mars conjunct Chiron in your 9th house, I think that you are having to heal a lot of your beliefs about life and about yourself and about where things have gone up to this point and why it's all happening. It's having to renew your faith and optimism in the future as well. And this transformation is challenging you to do that. To have the Tower moment and come out on top and see this as a beautiful experience and see this as a way to actually move forward in your life. And with the Lizard and the Rabbit card, I do think that this is going to come likely at the expense of some level of anxiety. The Rabbit card is always going. It's very active, right? Its mind is very active. It's very nervous. It's very fearful. With square with Neptune, the 8th house, there may be part of you that at times can have your imagination run wild, where you have dreams or visions or beliefs or something come through that feels scary. Like, oh, this bad scenario could happen. I'm scared of that. And having to kind of face that and calm yourself is, I think, part of what this full moon is about. And Lizard is about shedding dead skin. So shedding the layers of things that aren't working, the things that have clung on to you for far too long. And so I think that the shedding, the butterfly, like all these things are indicating some massive metamorphosis. So something old is dying off to create room for something new, which is actually quite consistent and stable with this Knight of Pentacles. And also with the Ace of Wands, the beginning of a spark of interest and excitement and passion and something that just feels alive. So this dead thing that's sloughing off of you, while it may be sad, while it may be difficult, is ultimately liberating you as well, especially in your career with Venus conjunct Uranus in the North Node in your 10th house. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Leo. I hope that resonates. And if it does, like and comment, let me know. And if you want a personalized reading, I always offer those on my website, willisbloom.com. And I also link that in the description box down below. And if you want to learn astrology, I have links for that there too. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right, up next we have my fellow Virgo risings. This full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 4th house, a very intimate and emotional house, which makes a lot of sense that my first card was the Queen of Cups. So there is, I think, a depth of feeling here that this full moon is bringing out within you. And this full moon, unfortunately, is squaring Neptune in the 7th house. So there may be some confusing situations within relationships that can bring about deep emotions within you. And I think the Queen of Cups here is asking you to go within and trust your intuition in order to navigate these experiences. Next to the Queen of Cups, we have the 8 of Pentacles in reverse. So maybe it's time to also kind of step away from something, to invest a little bit less in something and invest it in, and take that energy and invest it more into another area of your life. And again, the Queen of Cups energy of intuition can help guide you into what that is. And specifically, this being a full moon in the 4th house can let you know the energy is absolutely prime for you to put into your own emotional well-being. Taking care of yourself, taking care of your home, eating well, sleeping, coming back to the foundations and the basics of self-nurturing is going to be really important at this time. And so that is maybe where the energy can move to at this time. I also pulled the 6 of Cups, which I think is interesting because I think that whatever the situation is can bring up some remnants from the past, maybe something that's happened to you prior, or maybe you are just going back and spending time with people that you haven't seen in a while, or maybe you are going back to your childhood home and getting to experience old friends and things of that nature, which is funny because I'm actually going to one of my best friend's weddings at this time. So there is a revisiting of the past here that's happening with this full moon. And I do think that this full moon is somewhat challenging because we do have Mars conjunct Chiron exactly in Aries in your 8th house. So this is really digging up a lot of insecurities within yourself. Fears around dependency on others and vulnerability with others. Fears around betrayal and loss. Fears around circumstances that have happened in the past concerning those things. And with the 9 of Wands, I feel like there is this struggle to maintain the energy of what you currently are going through. Like I pulled a clarifying card and I got the Justice card. It's like a struggle to maintain balance, equilibrium, a sense of fairness in this situation and whatever you're going through. And so you might feel like you're really tested or tried emotionally at this time. And you, again, are being asked to just come back to a sense of balance within yourself. And that is where the true test is coming from. Can you maintain a sense of equilibrium? kind of regardless of whatever situations are going on, because it's okay to feel, right? It's okay to go through things and not always be in equilibrium. But at the end of the day, you don't want your life to just spin out of control. There has to be some container that you put yourself in. And so that, I think, is ultimately what this full moon is calling us to do. You guys also have Venus conjunct Uranus in the North Node in your 9th house, squaring Saturn in your 6th house. So there may be elements of your faith being tested at this time with Venus squaring Saturn. Your values and all of those things are kind of coming up to the surface, because there may be part of you where it feels like it's harder to be extremely positive or harder to be extremely hopeful. And like truly believe that things are always going to work out because of mental activity, because Saturn in the 6th house can generally bring about feelings of anxiety and feelings of inadequacy as well. And so those can really seep into our belief systems and make us challenge our sense of inspiration and desire to move forward. So those are things that you will be combating during this time. And ultimately, once the 23rd hits, this square will be gone and we will have a greater sense of liberation and hopefulness in this area of our life. I pulled the Strength card, which again to me is saying just stay strong. The Strength in the Nine of Wands is saying just stay strong through this period of time in your life. There are things that are testing you, that are challenging you, and you are going to be asked to meet them with fairness, with compassion, and with a sense of equilibrium, as I've been saying. You guys, did I mention everything I wanted to say? You guys also have the Unicorn and the Octopus card. And this is indicating that you might have a lot kind of going on in your life. The Octopus is saying you've got a lot of tasks to do, a lot of things on your mind, a lot of open tabs. And again, this Libra card, this Justice card is saying that you're going to have to fight to kind of maintain a sense of balance for yourself. The Unicorn card to me is saying that these experiences, especially with the Queen of Cups, are drawing you back to your intuition, are drawing you back to your spiritual connection and to the divine. And so they're ultimately going to give you a stronger relationship with your higher self and with your spirit guides because of these challenging times that you're going through. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Virgo Rising. If that resonates, please let me know by liking, commenting down below. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. If you want an astrology reading or if you want to learn astrology, you will find that in the description box down below or on willsboom.com. And I hope you guys, again, have a great day. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Libra Risings. So this is a time in which I feel like you guys might be experiencing a lot more change. And that's because you do have your chart ruler, Venus, in conjunction with Uranus, the planet of change, and the North Node. So you are going through, I believe, some kind of shedding process, realizations, self-understanding, awakenings that will ultimately liberate you and help you feel much more empowered and confident. This full moon is in Sagittarius, is lighting up your 3rd house of conversations. And I did actually pull the Lovers card and the King of Swords card, which to me is an indicator that you may be having some very real conversations with your partner about things that is ultimately going to bring about a greater sense of healing, but can initially trigger you. The reason I say that is because you have Mars conjunct Chiron and Aries in your 7th house, which is usually a point of insecurity, a point of uncertainty around our confidence in our partnerships. So whether this means that there is different ideas of what independence looks like, or and I'm talking about specifically romantic relationships, and then I'll get into other things in a second. But actually, you know what? It's really any relationship with anyone in your life where there maybe needs to be more boundaries or more independence or more bravery and courage and fire, or maybe a greater pursuit of you following what you truly want, or the other person standing up for themselves. Whatever that is, wherever that wounding is, with this being in Aries, Chiron and Mars, is going to be brought up to be resolved through conversation with this full moon in your third house. You will have realizations, thoughts, and share those thoughts with others in order to come to some sort of conclusion, which again will ultimately liberate you and create more change, less shackles of self-doubt in your dynamics within yourself as well. And this Lover's card next to the King of Swords to me is indicating a greater sense of closeness as a result. And so this can indicate that maybe you actually feel like you are uncertain about certain parts of yourself, and it creates like a distance within yourself that is being mended at this time, or within the partnership or within a certain relationship. There's a certain distance that insecurity is creating, or that there needs to be some kind of healing. There's some sort of rift. And ultimately, this full moon is going to create the realizations and conversations that can heal that rift and create more togetherness, either with yourself internally or with a partner or with a friend, with someone else. However, Venus is also making a square to Saturn. So there is a level of feeling like you really have to face some hurdles. Sorry, I feel like I just got really tired, and so I'm communicating less clearly. So Venus squaring Saturn can bring a feeling of isolation or of lack or of things becoming harder to kind of come together. So I feel like you may have to face some elements of yourself, have difficult conversations and realizations, and sometimes you will at first actually feel like there is that rift forming with this square with Saturn. But I do think around the end of June, like the 23rd of June, is when that rift will be healed. And this square with Saturn can indicate that up until then, you might feel this lack of support. You might feel like this lack of juiciness in your life or ease in your life. It might feel like things are trudging through mud a little bit. And this can largely be due to the fact that this moon is making a square to Neptune in the 6th house, which is saying that you're trying to have communication, but the communication isn't coming through clearly. The ideas are not coming through, or you're misunderstanding each other, you're missing each other in some way. And because of that, it's creating that rift. But again, ultimately, I think that this resolves itself at the end of June, where you are able to come together again. And the Four of Cups to me is indicating that you have to almost, I don't know, what's interesting is that the Four of Cups usually is like a person rejecting something. Like, I don't want this, so I'm going to move in this direction instead. And that might be the case for you. However, I think that you might actually be subject to this. You might feel like someone else is rejecting you in some way, or like you don't want to invest further into something, or like you want to walk away from a certain approach that you've been taking. Let me pull a clarifier actually for the Four of Cups to see if anything else wants to come through. I will say it's important for you with this kindness card to be kind to yourself, because Venus squaring Saturn can make you harder on yourself than usual. And that's really not something that we want, but also to be aware of your words and the way that you come across so that you are kind in your approach with others as well. I pulled the Chariot card as a clarifier to the Four of Cups. The Chariot card is one of fast movement and one of willpower. It's one of like knowing your direction and moving in that direction. So with Venus squaring Saturn, this in general can just indicate that things are kind of slowing down, and there can be uncertainties that creep in that kind of make you doubt whether something is for you or not. And again, slow down that process of reaching out and trying to make something happen. But I think with seclusion, with the Seek Seclusion card, with enough time alone with yourself to process some of these things that are happening, this is what's going to lead to some kind of metamorphosis, which will ultimately create harmony where there was this lack of understanding and conversation with others. So better understanding yourself and having time alone to reflect with yourself is what will create this connection again with others. And the Wolf card to me is a verification of this. Some of you, this might specifically be about working with a friend or something to do with a friend, because the Wolf card to me is a card of kinship and friendship. And that is telling me that there may be some kind of thing that has to be healed in a relationship with someone else. And this Wolf card is saying that you will come back together again. You will have this kind of relationship and kinship again. But that maybe there's some alone time and self-reflection time that has to happen first. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Libra Rising. If that resonates, please let me know by liking and commenting down below. And I hope that you guys have a great day. If you want an astrology reading from me, or if you want to learn astrology from me, there is links for both of those things in the description box down below or on my website, willisbloom.com. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Scorpio risings. So for you guys, this full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 2nd and 8th house axis. Specifically, the sun's in the 8th and the moon is in the 2nd. So having the sun move through the 8th house can be somewhat challenging of a time in which you are often facing some shadow side of the self, some crises or some insecurities and self-doubt. But it's a time of taking back your power. And with the moon in the 2nd house, you are becoming more stable through this process of illumination. Ultimately, you are coming to become more independent and self-reliant. However, this moon is making a square to Neptune in the 5th house, which is indicating that there is actually some lack of clarity on how to go about creating this stability within your life. Maybe this is something to do with financially, monetarily, like physical stability or emotional stability. Regardless, you might be pursuing something without having the full awareness as to why you're pursuing that, or the full awareness as to what that's going to get you, because Neptune will deceive us. Neptune will give us half of the truth. And so it's important here to recognize that the picture will unfold in time, specifically, I believe, on June 22nd, 23rd, when the square is no longer applicable and the moon finally makes its way over to Mars and Chiron in Aries. So what I think is happening for you guys is a desire to stand really strong in your power. The World card is indicating an ending of a cycle. So maybe in a cycle in which you have given your power away to others, or you have given your power away to certain situations even, or to certain beliefs and thoughts or insecurities. There's so many ways that this can develop. But the Knight of Wands to me is somebody who's coming on strong and fiery and somewhat almost impulsive in their decision making in order to kind of bring back that power. The Knight of Wands is extremely passionate and knows what it wants, and that's how it takes what it wants. But again, it is the most impulsive card in the deck, and that's why I say there may be things here that, because the situation's not totally clear with the square with Neptune, you might realize later has a different effect than you would want, especially because the Knight of Wands is followed by the Seven of Wands, which tends to be a combative card. You can see here on this specifically, this person is sitting there with all these torches kind of facing them. And so you might find that this desire to kind of jump ahead into something, jump ahead into taking your power back into to face your insecurities or whatever, might be met with some pushback. And you might find that in your view of the situation, there is resistance, or there is a fight or discomfort that emerges either internally or with others. It ends in the Four of Swords, which is a card of passivity and rest and reflection. And so the greatest outcome of this is to draw the energy back. And the reason for this, again, is because you do not have the full picture of the situation with the moon squaring Neptune. This is a perfect alignment for a lack of clarity, for really seeing things in one way, but things actually being another, or seeing the partial version of something when the full version is a lot different. And so the reason why you may have to pull your energy back is because if you keep acting and keep moving forward, it's doing so with the incorrect version of reality, and it can create more trouble. So the Four of Swords is your best bet in order to navigate the situation, in order to feel most aligned with yourself, because time is needed for this process of discovery and understanding and self-reflection in order to fully get the juice out of this situation that you are actually looking for. You guys also have Chiron conjunct Mars in your 6th house. So there may be some healing that is happening around health or mental health. Anything related to also feelings of inequality. All of those things can kind of come up at this time. And I pulled this give back card, which I feel like is really telling me that while there may be certain triggers that are trying to be healed, the best way to actually heal them is to provide acts of service, because that's what the 6th house is about. It's a house of service. And so the best healing of any of these triggers can come through you just dedicating your time and energy to people who really need it, or to people who are less fortunate than you. You guys also have Venus conjunct Uranus and the North Node in your 7th house, which can indicate some big changes in relationships, especially because it's in your 7th house. And it's making a square to Saturn. So some of these changes can be things that leave you feeling more like alone, essentially. They can take the life out of what is normally there and make us feel less supported, less understood. And with Saturn in the 4th house, it can drain you emotionally. It can leave you feeling kind of depleted when normally those relationships fill up your cup. And this could be something that happens really suddenly with Uranus there, really unexpectedly with Uranus there. But again, this square will kind of be gone on June 23rd. And I think that's when things will start to alleviate themselves. And liberation can be found in these relationships and in your dynamics in a way that's more positive than before. I pulled the Moth and the Butterfly card. To me, these are indicators of having some massive transformations. What's interesting though is like the butterfly is the more socially acceptable animal or insect for transformation. Like it's the thing that's everyone thinks is beautiful. Everyone loves butterflies. And then moths are these like animals that no one really likes that much. Like, I mean, some people might like them, but the butterfly is like the thing that we all want. And the moth isn't. But the moth is the thing that's transforming itself through the shadow, through the night. And the butterfly is transforming itself through the light. So I feel like you're going through two interesting metamorphoses right now, where one of them is to bring you to a higher state of consciousness, and you are becoming more enlightened, more aware, and you're transforming and you're rising above the ashes. But then also part of you is, I think, realizing more about your shadows and seeing more of the darker side of the self, and the side of the self that people don't want to look at, people don't want to see. And the moth is drawn to the light, so you are bringing light to the darkness and to these situations, and there's equal transformation in that. So I see you really advancing in both areas, through the shadows and through the lightness. And so I think both of these things, once integrated and once things come full circle at the end of June, will help you create that internal stability and happiness within yourself. And so I think that ultimately you will achieve the success that you want, you will have the happiness that you want, but you have to face certain things of yourself in order to do that, have certain realizations. And this Four of Swords, having time apart from others, from the world, really checking in with yourself, meditating, journaling, resting. That's the only way that you're going to be able to do this more moth shadow work that is necessary to see the full picture, which we cannot see right now with Moon square Neptune. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Scorpio Rising. I hope that resonates. If it does, please let me know by liking, commenting down below. If you want an astrology reading, you can always buy one from me on willsboom.com or using the links below, or you can learn astrology from me, which is also there. Thank you guys. Bye. Alrighty, up next I have my beautiful Sagittarius risings. This full moon is happening in your first house, which makes a lot of sense why I'm getting so many ace cards. Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Swords. Some type of culmination is happening here. Some type of new beginning can happen for you here, where you are getting the results of past efforts, or you are seeing things come to an end if they were not working. So this full moon is making a square to Neptune in the fourth house. So this can indicate something to do with home or family, some major changes in your life related to that. It can also indicate not seeing things clearly around home and family or emotions, because the square with Neptune can really show that there is something in this situation that has not fully come to light. So be careful when making important decisions that you maybe wait a little bit, or that you maybe wait a little bit, I'm going to say, especially, towards the end of June, like June 23rd, I think is when we will really be in the clear with a lot of this stuff. So that's a helpful time to wait until, so that you can really make sure that you can see things clearly. So, as I mentioned, this is a full moon in your first house. So there can be a lot of inner awareness at this time. And the square with Neptune can make sure that while you can't see things clearly necessarily with your conscious mind, that you are extremely aware with your intuitive mind. It's almost giving you like divine downloads. So maybe not the best time to sign contracts and like look over details, but if you are feeling called to something specific and emotionally drawn to it, especially if it's something related to the home and family, then it's almost like saying that this is a wonderful opportunity if it's emotionally lighting you up. But again, not to figure out the contracts and the details and all those little intricacies. Those things can have nuances that your intuition, not to say your intuition can't pick it up, but the intuition is good for kind of showing you the direction, but not working out all the facts and details. So just know that these are two separate things that are happening right now. That with the King of Cups, you are very in tune, you're very in touch, and you know what the direction is for yourself. But to make sure that you are acting with the best timing possible, which is why I'm telling you all this. With the Ace of Pentacles and Ace of Swords, this is a brand new beginning for you, a new opportunity. And with the Spider card, it's something that you have been manifesting yourself. So, and the Answers Within card to me is telling me that you know what is right in this situation. So again, your intuition is calling you to the right direction, but you might not have all the details and data and information figure outable right now. But the Ace of Pentacles and Ace of Swords and Spider card to me are telling me that you have the right ideas, that you're taking the right actions, the right opportunities are coming to you, the right news is coming to you, and it's because of your energy that you have manifested this in your life. You guys are also experiencing Mars conjunct Chiron in the 5th house, which is a time of healing. And the feeling that I get from this is like, I can't get what I want because there's some insecurity here around not being able to attract or get the things that bring you the most joy and the most pleasure in your life. So those things are going to have to be healed right now, and you're going to have to encounter or face maybe some areas of self-doubt or anything that could be blocking you from just enjoying this bliss and this happiness that could be available to you. You guys also have Venus conjunct Uranus in the North Node in the 6th house. This is indicating some likelihood of changes either in your work and your routines, or maybe in your level of responsibility towards something. And with the square with Saturn in the 3rd, this might also bring about feelings of lack. Often there can be like less finances, or we have to, with Saturn in the 3rd house, we have less mental capacity. Like we're more anxious, we're more preoccupied or worried because we have so many responsibilities and things to take care of. That doesn't mean that it's lasting for a long time. Again, this will be kind of cleared up around the end of June, around June 23rd. So I think this is when you're going to start to feel like I can sigh relief. Things make more sense now. Things are easily flowing now, and I don't have to like strive so much to make things happen. So this feels really good. I think for some reason when I started laying out your cards, I was like, I feel like this is actually good for you guys and more challenging for some of the other signs. like myself. So I'm excited for you, and I hope that you do resonate with this, enjoy it. And I hope that this is a good one for you guys. If you want a personal reading, you can book one on willowsboom.com, or you can learn astrology from me. Both of those have links in the description box down below. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. All right, and up next we have my beautiful Capricorn risings. This full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 12th house. And I think that this is one of the best times for healing for you. Especially, I pulled this receive healing card. I pulled the Judgment card, the Queen of Wands, the Ten of Swords. It feels like there is a definitive ending to some sort of cycle for you. And what feels like it's ending is anything that could have stood in the way of your self-confidence and your self-acceptance. That's the Queen of Wands to me. The Queen of Wands is a boss-ass bitch who knows her worth, who knows her value, who is confident in her desires, who goes after what she wants, and she believes she deserves it and that she can have it. This Judgment card next to this is indicating to me that you are releasing any thought patterns. You are first of all, awakening to them, and then releasing these thought patterns that have stopped you or prevented you from pursuing this, from being this. And the Ten of Swords is like, this is truly a new beginning in your life, an ending of this old version and a new life, a new soul almost, where you are able to, again, be this really confident person who accepts themselves. And this full moon is squaring Neptune in the 3rd house. So this could be something that feels like it is very spiritually or intuitively guided. And I will say that there might be like some level of like mental confusion or confusing conversations that don't fully make sense until sort of the end of the month, which is what I'm seeing in the astrology. However, that is ultimately going to lead you to this greater sense of confidence. So if there is a confusing thought or situation or perception of something, or you're not really sure what to do, or you're having a conversation, you're kind of confused about what's going on, although I think much of this is internal. It's like maybe you're kind of confused about something or don't know something, you're questioning yourself about something, but it's like whatever that whole not crisis, but whatever that questioning brings up for you is somehow going to lead you to an awakening where you're like, I can have what I want. I can be what I want. I'm confident. I'm sexy. I own myself. I own my worth. And I feel like you are receiving healing in this regard, which is super, super helpful. However, you guys also have Venus conjunct Uranus in the 5th house and the North Node there as well. This is calling you towards embodying your sensuality, embodying what brings you pleasure and joy, and more of that confident sense of self that can be displayed, that feels worthy of everything it has. So this is where you're being called. But with the square with Saturn, that Venus is squaring Saturn in the 2nd house, you are being challenged first. Before you can embody this person, you have to face certain limitations of yourself. You have to face certain insecurities or certain places where you are unstable, even financially, where you feel unstable. This could be a very literal sense, like I want to go and have fun with my friends, but financially I'm not doing so great. Or it could be more of this confident, sexy person. I want to be them, but I also feel like this about myself and I don't have this full confidence in myself. So again, I feel like this full moon can bring a lot of that stuff up to the surface. And by the end of the month, I think you're going to feel very resolved around some of these things. You're going to feel a lot better around some of these things. So if you felt some of these insecurities pop up, I see them ultimately healing for you tremendously. I also see that you guys have Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries in the 4th house. So this is a very emotional process. Everything that you're going through is going to trigger childhood wounds, is going to trigger really deeply set emotions. It can bring up a lot of insecurities and questions and everything around your home, around your sense of belonging. And I think that's why I pulled the 4 of Swords and the Knight of Swords. It's like you are having to almost like sit down, reflect, go within with this 4 of Swords. But then because of that process of slowing down, checking in with yourself, tuning into yourself and these emotional triggers or insecurities or anything that you might experience, because of your willingness to take a step back to reflect, it's ultimately with the Knight of Swords going to project you much further into the future, like much faster with the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is the fastest moving card. So it's like this time on the sidelines is going to energize you to go out there and get what you want. So there is like this taking a step back a little bit at this time to heal, to reflect, to deal with certain things. And then it's going to launch you forward into more lightness, more happiness, more confidence. And I see that especially with this Firefly card, which is generally indicating that the light is coming from within now. You are able to generate your own sense of self-worth. You are able to be witnessed and be seen. This confidence with the Queen of Wands is just coming through so strongly. But again, you have to like sit back a second and reflect and tune in with yourself to have the gifts of this situation come to fruition. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Capricorn Rising. You are being blessed, but being challenged before the blessing. And so that's what many of us are going through right now. I hope that resonates for you. If it does, please let me know by liking and commenting down below. If you want a personal reading from me, you can book one on willowsboom.com or using the link in the description box down below, or you can learn astrology from me, and the link is also there. So I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Aquarius Risings. I will say that looking at your cards, I think that this full moon looks very positive for you guys, which is well deserved, because you guys have kind of been going through it with Saturn moving through your first house, through your sign. It can bring a lot more delays and challenges and difficulties in life in general, and really having to face insecurities. And I think that this full moon is going to make way for more happiness in that area of your life. So let's go ahead and talk about this. You have the full moon happening in your 11th house in Sagittarius. So this is a time in which you may be more likely to find greater connections in your community, a greater sense of belonging, which is sometimes not always easy for Aquarius Rising. So ultimately, though, Venus is still making a square to Saturn, which can lead to feelings of like a little bit of less support, but I think that's mostly coming in through yourself and your family, which I'll talk about in a second. But socially, out in the world with friends, you are thriving right now. You kind of have everything that you need. And the 10 of Cups to me is an indicator of a lot of emotional fulfillment from this feeling of belonging and connectedness. And so I think that you guys are feeling like, yes, like things are going well for me. Your modern day ruler is Uranus, and this is conjunct Venus, and even your traditional ruler Saturn, which is squaring Venus, which, while it is a challenging aspect, is going to Venus is still such a good planet. It's going to improve the overall benefits of this full moon for you. So it's like, even though Saturn is squaring Venus, it's improving things for Saturn anyway, because Saturn struggles on its own anyway. So having Venus there is going to offer that support. And I think that's why I'm seeing the 8 of Wands here. So it might not be necessarily exactly at this full moon. I'm kind of telling everyone I see it more so happening on the 23rd when Saturn is no longer squaring Venus. But I see things moving, like picking up for you in life a lot and becoming a lot quicker. With the 8 of Wands, the hummingbird, the cheetah, all of these are extremely fast-paced cards. The hummingbird is so fast-paced. You can hear it. It's like little wings flapping. It sounds like it's just vibrating really quickly, and its heartbeat is extremely rapid as well. And so I think that you guys are picking up the pace in your life, and I think it's because you are almost gaining more clarity around your boundaries, what you value, what you need in your life. You're communicating that in a really clear and objective way. And this is where some of the greatest healing is happening for you with Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries in your 3rd house. I feel like you're really learning how to stand up for yourself. You're learning how to advocate for yourself and speak for your own needs. And because of that, people are really respecting you and respecting those boundaries, honoring them. And while there may be discord initially with Saturn square Venus, towards the end of the month, it's almost like that bears its fruit. The initial discord makes way for something more juicy, more like bringing you together even more. So even if there are certain conflicts with family members or where you're having certain trouble within the home, it's like you standing up for yourself, speaking things clearly, is ultimately what's going to make way for these relationships to become closer and for there to be an actual understanding. But again, you have to maybe go through a little bit of that, the issues at first in order to do that. So the Queen of Swords is going to be really important. Being unbiased, seeing things from their perspective as well as yours, sticking up for yourself, honoring yourself while also honoring the other person. There's a sense of fairness and justness that needs to come through your conversations in order for you to reap the rewards of these situations. You guys are also experiencing this full moon squaring Neptune in the second house. So there may be some lack of clarity kind of around your financial directions specifically, like, okay, my friends, things are going good in my social life and everything, but where is this going in terms of like my financial stability? And so that might be an area in which you're not totally certain at the moment. Like you kind of have an idea, but the picture isn't totally clear. So just keep that in mind. But I think that you are ultimately very protected with this Guardian card. So you don't have to worry about the finances necessarily. It just might be something that you're not totally clear about how that's going to unravel over time. Okay, so I think I touched on everything. I guess the last thing I'll just say is that I feel like you're stepping into a time of greater confidence. With the Eight of Wands, the Ten of Cups, the Queen of Swords, all these cards are really showing me that you're moving forward in a fast-paced, confident manner, objectively knowing your goals, and you're happy in this pursuit. And that's what the Cheetah card to me is saying, like, I know what I want, I'm going after it, and I'm confident about my willingness or my ability to achieve it. The Hummingbird card to me is an indicator of just general positivity and your life seeming lighter. So I think that this is moving you towards a time in which you, again, are being guided by the universe, are being protected, and you're going to find greater sense of happiness and fulfillment. So this seems like a really, really optimistic time, one in which you can enjoy the social aspect, but also look forward into the future with greater optimism. And so I'm excited for you. I hope that you enjoy this. If you want a reading from me, you'll find the link for that in the description box down below. If it resonates, please let me know in the comments. And I love you guys. Bye. All right, up next, I have my beautiful Pisces rising. So for you guys, this full moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 10th house of career. And I am very excited for you in this regard because I am seeing some powerful cards of manifestation and hard work coming in here. And so I think that you guys are going to absolutely reap the benefits of everything that you have put effort into prior. Full moons generally are about that, especially again in regards to your career or to your general life objectives. This is your time in which you might start to see things really pick up in a beautiful way, not a frenetic way, not in a chaotic way, but in a way of flow with this flow card here. And with the 8 on there, I feel like money is going to be flowing to you harmoniously. You're not going to have to put as much effort and energy into things to like force things to work. You will put effort with this Beaver card into being consistent and diligent and to still doing things, but the money will flow more easily to you. And I think that's ultimately going to be extremely healing because you have Mars conjunct Chiron and Aries in your second house, which is telling me that there is going to be a facing of your money wounds. Sometimes we can have little triggers that bring it up, but ultimately it's bringing it up to heal and to address any unresolved issues around lack and lack mentality. And I think you're going to find that money's flowing to you so much that it's an extremely healing time where you're able to release any of that sense of lack. This full moon in Sag is also making a square to Neptune in the first house. So this is something that I feel like is going to be very intuitively driven. Like you're, again, just flowing through your career, following your intuition about what is right in the moment. It's not really the best time to have an exact idea of everything you want and to not force all of the facts right away. That will come with time, I do believe, especially with this Knight of Swords here. I am believing towards the end of June, I'm saying June 23rd, that we will have more clarity about facts and things of that nature. But up until then, I think you are in a state of absorbing what's around you. I'm seeing so many blues here, which gives me this strong emphasis of water, and water really mixes and absorbs into things. And so I think that you guys are absorbing kind of the energy of what is being given to you right now, which is of trusting your intuition, being given intuitive hits and guidance of where to go. And this Magician card to me is telling me that you are able to then take this energy and shape it into what you want it to be. Again, you might not have all of the details kind of worked out, but you can get the general sense of feeling of what you want to manifest. Oh, I want to continue to feel this way. I want to continue to make money. I want to continue to have the sense of abundance and impact on others. But again, the details, they come later. And so I feel like this is a really, really beautiful time for you. The Knight of Cups next to this to me is an indicator of more beauty in your relationships as well. And next to the Knight of Swords, there may be some realizations or conversations that you need to go through in your partnership or in your connection with others. Because you do have Venus conjunct Uranus in the third house with the North Node, which is indicating growth in your relationships through conversation and connection, through sharing ideas, sharing what's on your hearts and what's on your minds. And this is Venus is squaring Saturn in your 12th house. So there may be a need to have conversations around things that have been hidden prior, things that you haven't fully maybe addressed, or maybe you haven't wanted to even own up to within yourself. And so these things I think can really come to the surface to be addressed, which can lead to uncomfortable conversations or feelings of disconnect momentarily. But again, by June 23rd, I think it's ultimately going to bring a greater sense of connection, because it's through this understanding each other, through being totally honest and transparent, and maybe even sometimes just spilling your mind in a haphazard way, because the Knight of Swords can kind of just like, this isn't planned, I'm just going to say this, I wasn't intending to talk about this today, but this just all came to the surface, I didn't even realize I was going through this. And then that level of honesty, while maybe somewhat impulsive in the moment, is what ultimately at first can create friction, but ultimately creates connection, because there is an understanding if that person still accepts you, still loves you, whatever kind of relationship dynamic this is, then it's through that acceptance and that love with all the cards out on the table that you realize that you are very bonded with that person and even more connected. And so I feel like you are being just really guided right now. You're being really blessed right now in many ways, especially within your career. I do feel like things are in a good place for you. I think for some signs it's a little bit more challenging. For you, it looks really good. And I think it's a time in which you are meant to be in your body with this, listen to your body, really listen to your intuition within the body. I think it's a lot about tuning into yourself, trusting yourself, being very aware of your physicality. And it's through that you're ultimately going to manifest the things that you want and know the right path for you and what to open up about as well. But again, with this Beaver card, just to end it on this note, you are meant to be working hard and consistent and showing up. And it's through that and following your intuition that you're going to manifest with this Magician card everything that you desire. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Pisces Rising. I hope that resonates. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. And if you would like a personal reading from me, or if you would like to learn astrology from me, I will have links for both of those in the description box down below, or my website, willsboom.com. Thanks. Bye.